The lesson 5 is the self in Western and Oriental Eastern thought. Individualistic versus collective self. The concept of the psyche is a Western model of the soul. Western traditional are always preoccupied by the duality of the body and soul. Plato started with the idea that the soul inhabited the world of ideas, while the body descended to the world of the sensible. The Western concept of the self is very much anchored on the individuality of the psyche. The individual self is always in a struggle to reconcile the connection between the ideal self or perfect soul and the limited self or sinful body. In other words, from the moment of conception, the self is molded and prepared to live a good and happy life. Although the self in the Eastern perspective also want to attain perfection and meditation and enlightenment, there has never been an issue of dualism. The Confucian philosophy from China emphasized the relational self and social understanding of the self. We have two ways of interpretation of Confucius philosophy. One interpretation say that the ideal, this moral self is always able to forego individual interests and view of prioritize the social interest. The second interpretations of Confucian thought assess that the individual self and social self are not mutually exclusive but the metaphysically and profoundly related. The individual character of the self cannot be separated from the social character of the self. Features of individualism and features of collection. Features of individualism I is identity, promotes individual goals, initiative, and achievement. Individual rights are seen as being the most important rule attempt to ensure self-importance and individualism. Independence is value. There is much less of a drive to help other citizens or communities than in collectivism. Features of collections. Each person is encouraged to be an active player in society, to do what is best for society as whole rather than themselves. Rules promote unity, brotherhood, and selflessness. Working with others and cooperating is the norm. Everyone supports each other. As a community, family, or nation more than as are an individual. The social construction of the self in Western thought. Social construction is a shared assumption of perception of the people in society. The Western social construct of the self can be characterized in three ways. First is the individualistic self. At a very young age, the child is already taught to pressure what is best for self. The individualistic self is always conceived as the autonomous bounded entity. For one to be autonomous, one must be able to show independence. Relevant to independence bring about the second Western social construct of the self, which is self-sufficiency. This construct presumes that a successful self must be able to supply one's need without external assistance. Being self-sufficient always implies confidence in one's capacity to provide what the self needs from one's own resources and authority. The third social construct is the self being rational. In the Western practice, there is no time for the self to be weak and emotional. The self master that causal relationship of things. Everything must be explained by logic and reason. The successful self, therefore, is grounded on one's investment on reason and logical thinking. The self as embedded in relationship in thought spiritual development and Confucian thought Eastern construct. Eastern social infrastructure are mostly seen as contrary to the Western individualistic construct. The Eastern social construct is primarily viewed as a collectivistic and is always grounded on nature. And we have the three principles of Confucian philosophy: Gen Z, Li, and Ren. Gen Z is the new self formed in a right education under the virtues teacher as the role model. It involves humanistic learning, refined personal manners, and the capacity to govern the community wisely and with compassion. And Li, the world of Li, originally means sacrifice. The principle of Li is better understood as a refined manner of spiritual ritual and sacrifice, and protocols and honoring the ancestors. Li is both the training and refinement of the self. And the last one is Ren. Another concept in Confucian philosophy is the principle of Ren. Ren is the character of the self that the sincerely showed compassion for others. The self must embody human heartedness by prioritizing the self interest of others.